The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, or good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in this world listening to this. I welcome you, and what we really want to do today is we want to take a look and explore what actually is going on when you hit a barrier, and for some reason, you can't get through it. You try hard, you're smart, you have all these things going, but somehow there is something missing. And we want to take a look at that tonight. But before we begin, I just want to let you know a couple things. One is that this is going to be recorded, and it will be available sometime tomorrow afternoon for you to be able to use and review and the whole 9 yards. So for the people who I got notices from saying I'm not going to be able to make it, understand it's there. You just have to go to the YouTube channel, and it'll be there. It'll be the first post. The other thing is I take questions at the end of these presentations. It keeps me coherent. It keeps me flowing within a system. But what I would really appreciate is as you come to have questions, write them into the question box. Okay, and that would allow us at the end of the presentation, instead of having that awkward several minutes when people are trying to figure out their questions and write them down and get them up, it'll allow us to have a couple prime questions already there. Fair enough? Fair enough. First thing is this. What's going on with this barrier stuff? It's like you hit a glass ceiling. You can't tell what's there. And the question is, you think about it, I have enough knowledge, I know what I'm doing, what's going wrong? Well, what we really want to do is this, is we really want to start asking the question, why is this such a very powerful problem? Because understand, people struggle to break through into the next level in all things. It may be you moving from one level of how much capital you're risking to another level. That's a big one. Okay? It may be just simply that turning on the computers is a level that you haven't been able to achieve. It may be that you've come to a moment of where you will put really solid days, weeks, months in, and then give it all back and then some. And you're going, I've hit a level, and something is happening at that level that just absolutely seems to like trigger something. And you and I are going to take the emotional perspective and we're going to start saying, let's answer that question. Because it's about our primitive brain and automatic responses to threats or opportunity in the field. Now, if you did that to trading, that would be the trader, okay? He's there. And then there's the environment. You're looking at that. You're looking at through your charts and you're in the market and stuff like that. And what we're saying is what is activating inside you that tends to keep you within a jar? And if knowing that, what can we do to break through that jar? And the very first thing you really truly need to know is your caveman brain. That would be your emotional brain. It would be it's all called your mammalian brain, your social mammalian brain. And it is programmed for something very different. It does not have language. It doesn't talk. You can't hear it as thoughts in your heads. It is activated emotionally for doing things quickly. Okay? Now, what we have here is we have caveman spearing a bunch of dollar bills. And the truth is, it doesn't know money. If you brought a ton of money and dumped it right down to a clan of cave people 20, 30, 40,000 years ago, they would go, what am I going to do this for? Maybe they would burn it to light fires or something like that, but it wouldn't do anything from them. They had not developed this concept of capital, of money, nor had they tied it at that time to your power to survive. This is important. What that emotional brain knows is about threats or opportunities to life and death. So when the trade goes against you, you might be talking that it's capital at risk. Your caveman brain on alert now, looks at it and says, "Oh my God, I'm being attacked by a bunch of saber-toothed tigers. My God, I'm going to have to fight back. I'm going to have to fight to my last breath." And in the process, what is activated is a survival instinctual pathway that suddenly your thinking brain is pushed aside as if it's not even there, and you are acting from that caveman brain. You are then the ape. You are monkey brain right there. And the thinking brain that is so exalted in human beings is no longer actively part of the conversation. This is what's happening, friends. Every time you come to a moment that all of a sudden you can't push through, you're hitting a barrier that has been learned by your limbic system, that caveman brain, locked into pattern, and it becomes instinct. It activates automatically without your thinking brain even being around. So that is the problem. Money and power got slurred together, and you bring that brain to trading. And your survival instincts are going to kill your trading account. Okay? So the deal is, we now get this thing is that, okay, what happens is that my emotional brain somehow picked up this deal of how important money is now, capital, and it began to associate that, okay, that with life or death. And there you go. That's the emotional brain acting and doing what it's supposed to do. And a lot of people think, oh, I'm just all in my head. You know, the thing is I'm just going to push my emotions away. You can't. Is the only time you don't have emotions is when you're dead. Even when you're sleeping and you're having dreams, you're noticing that they're emotionally driven. So now we're going, okay, without training, you're going to trigger ancient survival instincts that just simply overrun the cognition required to trade. Do you see the dilemma? Because ultimately, this is what you're going to have to learn to work with. Because let me show you something. Let's talk about dinner tonight. I don't know about you, but as when we finish this webinar, we're going to go in for dinner, and we're going to have, the thing is, we're going to catch our prey in the refrigerator, and we're going to cook some stuff, but all of it came out of the refrigerator or something else. Let me show you how your ancestors kind of viewed getting a meal. Now, we have some very brave guys, and they have cornered a mammoth. Now, I want you to take a look at it. Do you notice that he's about 30 to 50 times the size of those human beings? And do you also notice those 15-foot tusks? He can start swinging those tusks and just take these guys out. Yet, the instincts that these guys are built from is, in order to be able to take him down and kill him, what happens is that clan eats like a king for a week or two, and they also have all sorts of supplies that comes out of that animal's body. The problem is, in order to make that kill, they have to risk themselves. And if you've ever been around an alpha, a person who will risk too much and jump into trades, what you're looking at is that if they were around and if they survived this, what happens is they got an enormous amount of respect. They were honored. They became the leaders of the clan. They did all that. They also got first dibs on everything. In fact, they got first dibs on being able to mate and take their genetics and move it into the future. That's highly valuable. It became so valuable that a deal was made that these guys would go in and attack things like this. The rewards were extreme. This is getting rich quick. And, out of that, you're going, whoa, this is what forged your emotional brain right here. This is what you're looking at is both fear and foolishness. I'm personally not getting that close. Okay. And the guy's sitting over there with a bow and arrow. Okay. And some guys are working with spears, and they're taking down something that there's a high likelihood that they're going to die doing. But the rewards are so great that over time they fuse, and overtrading arises, taking advantage of opportunity. Now we get it. Everything changes when you got skin in the game. Understand, for them, just being there in front of this beast, they've got skin in the game. You may be completely divorced from this image from 30, 40,000 years ago, but every time you get in front of the trade and all of a sudden you start seeing you're there, what are you there for? You're there to make money, right? Sitting around and just being patient and all that kind of stuff. Oh man. And all of a sudden what happens is you end up jumping into trades. The opportunity, the thing is, you think there's an opportunity. That's all instinct. And it's hard to train out. But understand this. Your primitive caveman brain seems really tame until stress activates it. Remember, the caveman 20,000 years ago spent 90% of his time in a situation called rest digest. You're chilled out, not much is going, you've got food, you've got this. There's really nothing to do. You hang around talking and all that kind of stuff and being social. When you got hungry, something else happened, something active to go hunt. And then all of a sudden, guess what? Something activates, and let's just say now you're trading, you're that geek sitting there saying, I've got my rules, I've got my, I have an edge, all I have to do is follow it, I've got it down, all I have to do is all this stuff. You have caveman brain sitting in there, and all of a sudden you get into that trade immediately turns against you. It's heading like a bullet to your stop out. That's when caveman gets active. And suddenly that's a saber-tooth tiger acting, and all of a sudden you've got to fight. You can't lose. It's your life. Even though you have this plan about taking losses and stuff like that, that is because the geeky guy has not learned how to build a new partnership with caveman brain. And this is the whole thing of where you are hot wired to choose fight flight over a rational mind. And the truth is, unless you have training, their internal strengths are going to get hijacked in the process. So the key is, now we get this idea that there's a problem here. And the question is, what are you going to do about it? This is where people tell us that our work is a lot different. It's what we now are looking to do is we are looking to take the thinking brain and the emotional brain and build a new relationship between them. Okay, so that thinking brain actually starts noticing the emotional brain's there. That's the big problem, is that it's very common. I'm working with a guy right now out of Europe, and he was born, he was born in Norway, grew up in Minnesota among a bunch of Norwegian people. And if you've ever been around Scandinavian people, you find out the guys in particular are pretty stoic. It's almost like they don't have emotions. And what happens, he grew up that way, and now he's trading, and guess what? What happens is that he has a hard time identifying emotions in him. And by the way, we actually have a term for that, alexithermia. And he sees the results because he gets hijacked. And so what we're doing is we're beginning to forge a new relationship between his emotional brain, which is hard for him to feel. So we're actually looking at the emotion and saying, no, let's say emotional arousal, the beating heart, your beating pulse is an indication that the emotion has triggered. The tension in your body is also indication that the emotion is triggered. You can use that to begin to educate yourself about the presence of emotion taking over mind. And here what we're saying is we need to pull these together, and that thinking brain has to do the best job it knows how to be able to calm down and domesticate that emotional brain, or it's going to activate, hijack, and you're going to be like the rest of practically every trader that trades. You're going to lose money. Okay? So now your brain's organized around fear, and that's what its response to uncertainty is. It will stop you from accessing the needed strengths. So you bring a brain built for survival, and you're asking it to work in probability. It's been wired for at least 8 million years to respond to probability as a threat. or as an opportunity if you're hungry and you're seeing that woolly mammoth. So now, then you just want to work hard. Well, that's not going to work. You have to change a neural pathway so that it no longer reacts in that fight flight way. And that's not done without rigorous training. You have to really work yourself if you're going to do it. Because ultimately, what happens is that you're sitting there, fine one moment, your cognitive resources are there, and you can sit there and go everything, and all of a sudden fires the self-doubt. Do I get in? Do I get in? Oh my God, I need more confirmation. Oh my God, what if I lose? What if I lose? And all of a sudden, it's gone. It's that you do not have a powerful thinking mind compared to the emotional brain. Your brain, your mind, your thinking mind creates stories and alibis for whatever the emotional brain has already decided. If you get in its way, you're like this, you're just getting powed away. Okay? Understand, these instinctive things are automatic and they are reactive. And unless you learn how to work with that, it's going to continue to knock you out. And I want to show it to you. Okay? Here we have a graph that I've been using for years and years and years. And it's still, people look at it and go, oh my God, I had no idea. First of all, down at the bottom left, you have emotional stimuli. You have information coming in through the senses to the brain, okay? Which, by the way, is locked down there in a cavity and has never seen the light of day ever. He's never seen anything that it's making up stuff about. And what happens, the sensorial information comes in, and all of a sudden you realize it goes, oh my God, should I get really scared? Or should I play this out and stay calm? Well, if it's something that looks really scared, like the saber-tooth tiger is trying to attack you, it's going to hit the sensory thalamus. And the best way of describing that is like when there were traffic cops that had these big, huge intersections and they would direct traffic and stuff like that. And when an emergency vehicle came around, he would stop all traffic and he would let that emergency vehicle through. That is what the sensory thalamus does. It's taking a look and says, do I need to attend to this right this second? Is this an emergency? Or can I send that information to the thinking brain, the sensory cortex? That's where thinking and evaluation occurs. That's what you want as a trader. But if the thing is, if you're trained in a way that you think that saber-tooth tiger is coming at you, that's going to be, oh my God, death is here. And so it's going to go through the short route, or what we call the low road, that takes 0.003 seconds to get to the hippocampus, that's the memory, and to the amygdala, that's fight flight. Okay, and out of that, an emotional response just is automatic working into the world, and suddenly you're either fighting or you're fleeing. Meanwhile, if that information was still going to the thinking brain, it would take 0.25 seconds for it to get there. And then the deliberation would take, and all of a sudden you begin to realize that the low road is super fast. The high road, thinking, evaluation, is really slow. And unless you can disrupt that traffic cop and the sensory thalamus, you're going to activate that amygdala and the fight flight, and you're going to continue the problems you have. This is what's holding you at a particular place, and you can't get beyond. This is something you have to work through. It's actually really, you might even say it's really something more like this is the way the brain is organized. It wants to stay that way. And yet at the same time, staying that way is going to just bleed money. And so you need it to change, and you're going, well, how do I do that? If this thing is on automatic, what is going on? The good news is this: with effort, and I'm serious. A lot of people think, oh, I'm going to talk to Randy, and I'm going to get his secret sauce, and I'm going to know that, and all the difference in the world is going to be made. No. What happens is I actually use what I would say is a process. Is that it is you learn one skill, then you learn another skill, put them together, you learn another skill, and you finally come to the moment of where you have an automatic skill that can fire and you can move. But the thing is it generally takes about 2 to 3 months for you to train it to start doing that. But you can do this. You can train the brain to respond differently to uncertainty than the way it was historically built to respond. And if you want to find success in trading, if you want to get past that barrier, this is what you have to do. And this is what separates the wannabes from the people who recognize, oh, I'm lucky, I'm a human being. I have the capacity of actually changing the way my brain responds to uncertainty, rather than like a regular animal out there, like my dog. He's wired. And so now we're going, oh, I'm beginning to get this. I hope you are. I hope you are. Because ultimately, this is a point where you begin to realize that when you take a look at your trading account, the health of it, what you're really recognizing in it is that the beliefs you hold about your ability to manage uncertainty successfully, you are seeing what beliefs really are acting when you're under stress. If your bottom line is growing consistently, you're realizing that you are developing beliefs that allow you to manage uncertainty consistently. If you're going up and down, you're reaching a threshold that you no longer feel comfortable in managing. And what you do is you trigger that short path, and all of a sudden you're in fight flight. And it's all rooted in mattering and worth, okay, that cannot come from winning, okay? They have to come as just an internal sense of being. It has to be internal worth, okay? That you can separate your value as a human being from your performances. For instance, you don't have to raise your hands. We couldn't see anyway. But how many people in here wake up every day and one of the things they announce to the world and to themselves as they get ready and prepare that mind for trading, I'm going to make some money today? Most of you. The deal is, if you have that attitude, there's going to be a very severe problem. Is that sooner or later, you're going to figure out that you do not control outcome in trading. You have been holding a delusional thought that you do in the regular world. And in the regular world, you can, in fact, get away with that. For instance, my father smoked Camel unfiltered cigarettes for 52 years. A lot of people try to be helpful and say, Howard, you really ought to stop smoking, particularly, a non-filtered cigarette. And he would look and say, I feel good. And that went on, it went on. And, he started having serious problems and all that kind of good stuff. And finally, he shows up at a doctor's office and he's sitting there. And the doctor says, Mr. Howell, you need to get your affairs in order. And all of a sudden, he just was shocked. How could this have happened? Okay? His beliefs were short term. Okay? And that totally had everything to do with the way he saw and acted in the world. And suddenly, all that nicotine that had been keeping his anxiety at bay, remember, it's narcotic, was flush up, and the anxious person that he also was inside was able to show up. Okay? But if he hadn't been smoking, you can say, well, he wouldn't have been able to manage the uncertainty and the flux in life. The truth is that learning emotional regulation is the answer. It's the way that you learn to breathe that actually controls the intensity of an emotion, the way you hold tension in your body. You can learn to calm those down and not use a narcotic, okay? And you don't have to then fool yourself. But that's kind of the way it works. And then what happens is once you kind of get free and you realize that, something, I have a lot of self-doubt. I beat myself up. I urge myself to take jumps and stuff like that. I'm doing all these things. And you really, truly grasp that, what we're talking about is that living within you is kind of a committee, and one of the major players inside your mind is something that I call the inner critic. And in this particular case, what you're doing is you're looking at the inner critic scolding, criticizing, judging some guy, and you can see him slumped over, probably feeling in shame. And the truth is that if you notice, he's not even turning toward the inner critic. He's trying to avoid that part of himself. And at the same time, by avoiding that destructive part of the self that I call the inner critic, you give it carte blanche access to your mind, to control it, to get into the moments of when you really need to have your act together. What you've done is you've turned your back on your fears, and the fears are running wild. This is what has to stop. But the key is most of us don't like the experience of the inner critic. It's called the critical voice in cognitive behavioral therapy. Okay. But the thing is, it's also called other things in different religions and stuff like that. But the deal is, I want you to see how this is rooted in biology. A mind is created with a psychology, and part of that psychology, part of that group consciousness is the inner critic. And you'll see this, the guy that has his shoulders slumped, that's what we call in my work the orphan, the adaptive self. And it's because they don't have the skills to turn toward the inner critic and to master it. And what we want to do is come to a moment of in your work and your development that winning and losing are simply the side of probability that your trades fall on. Winning is no longer about you being large and in charge, and losing is not about you being a loser. Okay? You learn to be able to build in this mind. You learn how to build this insulation from that crazy stuff, but you also learn how to realize that everybody has their demon. Actually, I had a woman from China post, and she was saying that she was going to have a hard time getting to this thing, and I'm going, wow. My view is I think I would watch it tomorrow. But what she talked about was the monster, and she's a really good trader. At the same time, the monster will show up in her midst. The deal is she's being honest. And she started being honest when she read my work, and all of a sudden she's seeing, oh my God, I have been ignoring this inner critic, and by ignoring it, it doesn't allow me to master it. And she's realizing that that kind of thing is what's really important. So what we're talking about, instead of winning and losing, basically determining if you're a great guy or not, what we want to do is say, you know something, winning and losing demonstrate your competence as a trader. And particularly, and emotional competence to me is enormously important in trading. If you can't have discipline, if you cannot calm yourself down, if you cannot be brave enough to face your fears, you're not going to have clarity of thought when you engage. So you're looking at it and going, you know something, the moment that you think you're in control, you've lost control. And out of that, what you're trying to do is you're trying to say, if I'm in control, then I matter, then I have worth. And you know something, I'm a big dude. I have prestige. I have all this stuff. Yet at the same time, what I tell you is this: you do not have control over outcome. What you have control over is the mind you bring to the game. For instance, if you get into the game of trading and you're working along and suddenly you're trading in your rules and stuff like that, suddenly you leave your rules, by my definition, you're now a gambler. The only thing that gives you an edge is your ability to follow those rules that over time is going to extract more capital out of the markets than you give back. And in order to do that, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have the patience and also the clarity of the mind to know that winning and losing do not define who you are as a human being. Okay? Winning and losing just simply demonstrates your competence as a trader, which, by the way, can be improved. Okay, and also it's really important is that winning is probably one of the most dangerous, underrated things there is. You start winning and you think you got it, and what it really does is give you a dopamine rush, and all of a sudden you snorted cocaine. And I hope you don't do that while you trade. Okay, and suddenly you have this feeling that, oh, the good times are going to roll on over. Man, I'm on a roll. I'm going. That's drugs. That's a powerful reward system that is being misused by you. It's just being a caveman. A win or a loss is only about falling on the wrong or the right side of probability. It's not about life and death. Your caveman brain does not know the difference, and you have to train your brain, train your mind so that you can combat reactive, instinctive part of the brain that I call caveman brain. And your human worth, your inherent worth, that's beyond your performances. That's a relationship between you and however you interpret the reality. But in human worth, I hold personally that I am a child of creation. Now, my creation is the Big Bang. But what I also get is that life wanted to be in relationship with me. And out of that, I showed up. That is the worth that cannot be taken away from me. If I win or lose, it doesn't really make a difference. I'm still have that worthiness at the ground of my being. And what I'm asking is for you to start changing that. And what I want you to see here very quickly is the caveman brain is the exact opposite. Winning is living and losing is dying. Okay? And this has, as human beings, as humanoids and humans, this has been 8 million years of constant reinforcement and organization. Understand, we had a common ancestor with the chimpanzee. We share 98% of our genetics with that species. And it just so happens that more of your brain is activated to that ape brain than this thing that makes us human. And you are the one who is going to have to change this. This is what evolution has done. Okay. Fortunately, you're not stuck in evolution. You are also a co-creator. So the deal is this. If you follow this line of reasoning, if you follow this line of reasoning and you've taken fear offline, you can actually develop the inherent strengths that live within you. And here, by the way, that's me for those of you who are curious. And those are baboons. Okay? And what I'm doing is I'm showing you we can find peace in the midst of monkey mind. Okay? The deal is all that noise, all that crazy stuff, all that distraction, all that fear-based thinking, that negative-based thinking, it's part of that monkey mind. It doesn't have to be part of the human brain. You're going to have to be vigilant about it. The key is, though, this is where you realize, but how do I take fear offline? The very first thing that you're really going to have to do, and this is something that Disney Pixar did so dang well with Inside Out, is what you're looking at is they went to neurobiologists and can you help us really understand emotions in such a way that we can kind of see how all this works? Because ultimately, all thinking is emotional state dependent. And all of a sudden, you realize this thinking is coming out of emotional programs. Here, you are looking at, in a kid's animated movie, you are looking at how that brain gets organized by a community of emotional programs. And what they're trying to do is take control of the construction of the self. Most of us are born into a family system, into a culture, into a world that our brain is like barely formed and it's not very instinctual. We get into that world, we live wire to it, and these are what's forming us. these emotional programs that only are seeking short-term survival. And the key is you begin to go, oh my God, that's what's running around with me. That's what's running around in you. And what we want to do is we want to say, you know, something, it's really good for survival, but it's not good for being able to create a future for you to become captain of your own destiny. And the good news is this: besides having fear, aggression, sadness, all that living within you as emotional programs that can rise up, can take over the direction of the mind and your behaviors and move on, you also have the discipline of a ruler. That would mean maintaining yourself under pressure. Okay? You also have the courage of a warrior. That means you have the ability to turn toward your fear and face it and act in the face of fear. Courage. You also have the self-soothing, the self-compassion of a caregiver. Remember, these are resident programs. You can't have access to them. You also have the impartiality, the clarity of thought of a sage. That gets really disrupted if these other three pieces of the mind aren't being managed properly. So now, here's the deal. These are simply parts that are there. And it just so happens that in my work, what I'm teaching, first of all, I'm teaching you how to disrupt the emotional programs from taking over and just hijacking you. Then I'm teaching you how to observe and step back and realize that you do not have to identify with the current organization of a self that you are quite fluid and you can actually change who you are into higher functioning. And in doing that, you go, whoa, I can actually build this. So this set of emotional programs shows up when there is a trigger for stress rather than the old one that is all about fear and anger, aggression and avoidance. So this is what we've gone. The thing is that, yeah, you have the discipline of a ruler. And I want to, this is a photograph of Abraham Lincoln, the guy who saw America through its Civil War and was a remarkable president. Okay, what he was able to do. The thing is that in each of us, there is the discipline of a ruler. You can feel it in your body. If you go back to memory and find a time where you were able to maintain order over yourself, you'll notice that there is a posture in the body. You will notice that there is a chemistry providing a feeling in the body. That feeling is the chemistry that's altering your cognition. And this can be trained. I use various techniques. I use something called memory enrichment, where you're using memory to go in and come to know beyond a shadow of a doubt this emotional program is part of your nature. It just hasn't been called forward and worked with because it didn't necessarily have the mentorship to see that done. At the same time, there is the courage. All of us have dragons. Now, this particular person I was talking about earlier, they called them monsters. And I wouldn't expect the Chinese to think of dragons as like they have a totally different kind of reverence for them. But the thing is, here you're seeing the personification of a person accessing the courage of a warrior, and what they're doing is they're facing their dragons, facing their demons, facing their monsters. And you come to understand one big fact. The only power that the dragon has is the power you give it. And to change, you must face what you do not want to see in yourself if you want to be a consistently profitable trader. There are plenty of monsters, there are plenty of little demons, there are plenty of little dragons floating around in your head that you're going to have to master. You've been able to get away with not dealing with them and pushing them away and denying them. And then trading comes around and they're in your face. And you're going to have to do it if you're going to become a successful trader. But within this, there is also the self-compassion of a caregiver. That is the part that actually does the healing. That is the part that actually opens up a neural pathway to rebuild itself into higher functioning. And the reason I use this photograph is that I am a heart transplant recipient. And by the way, if you have something like that, Duke University, Duke Medical Center is the place to go. They're really great. I'm alive because of them. But they give you this little pillow. It looks just like this. It's a heart. And you don't go, why am I getting this goofy gift? And all of a sudden you realize that when they cut your chest open, for about 6 to 8 weeks, it is painful to laugh, to cough, to do almost anything, move around where your chest moves around, because it hasn't healed yet. And what they do is they teach you to hold one of these pillows and you give yourself a self hug. You love yourself, you hug yourself, and do it tightly, and that allows you to cough, and it doesn't just jar you from, it allows you to laugh and not just hurt yourself. So the thing is that one of the major things is that my question really would be, has beating yourself up after a loss, has it ever really helped you? The answer is no. You make the problem go deeper. Except self-love, self-compassion, you realize that you're going to always belong to yourself. You know that I hope that you have come to love yourself, okay, as you have been loved. And I hope you also come to a moment of realizing that you always have been worthy. You always mattered. You always belonged. That's the piece you have to come to at the deepest level of unconditional love. That's how change occurs. I know it sounds weird, but I can promise you is that my background is working with at-risk youth, and it made a huge difference. And then you do that, you get that part together, and the clear-headedness that you want as a trader is solid. It doesn't get blunt. The geek doesn't lose his brain and the caveman take over. This is what happens. Impartiality only comes when the fear of your orphan nature is calmed down, and that part of you experiences protection and leadership, mentorship, a new kind of mentorship. This is what's missing the most in the construction of the trading mind. The truth is you're going to be taking losses for the rest of your life if you're going to be a successful trader. And if you know you're going to be taking losses, you need to be compassionate. You need to recognize that you're still lovable, that you can still handle this. This is essential, okay? So ultimately, you take these three things, and this is the Lord of the Rings with one of the most powerfully archetypal films I've ever seen, and it blew me away, and it still blows me away. But what you're looking here is the internal struggle, the struggle that goes on within everybody's mind. And you think about it, you've got a Gandalf, a magician, a sage, necessary. You have a king who wants his crown back, who wants to mend that. You see warriors that support him. You see compassion that is there to help. And you also see in Frodo, you see the real battle. The rest of these guys have an external battle. It is Frodo that has the internal battle. He's holding the ring of power that wants to seduce him into destructiveness. And his mission is to put it back into the lava so that it can be unmelted, undone. And as he's courageously moving through, he's also losing control. And yet his friend Sam, deeply compassionate that he is what aids him in that strength to be able to finish the task. Friends, this is what lives within you. Has it been misdirected and rebuilt out in a completely different direction? I know it was for me. I grew up in a profoundly alcoholic home, and things were going to blow up. And I know how difficult it was to take that brain that should have been dead several times and to pull it together and to become the human being I am. I know it's possible because I too am a client of this work. Okay? But this is the thing. You can control the mind you bring into the moment of performance. That's what you can do. And here, this is when you're in control, you decide what emotional programs are going to come together to create the mind that faces uncertainty. You're not using the mind that you fell into anymore. We know that's not going to work just simply because we're built to have a negative assessment machine as a brain, and we also are built to lead from fear first. We can't have that if we're going to have a probability-based mind that can take losses and not take losses and take wins and not be swayed either way. This is the new mind that has to be created. And I've shown you the parts of it, okay? And the truth is, there is always going to be destructive parts of the mind. Always. There is also going to be constructive. The real key is, who do you feed? I choose to feed the constructive parts of the gift of life that I am. And so I'm keen to work on the emotional programs that are given control of the committee of my mind. What I'm asking of you, fundamentally, is take responsibility and reorganize the committee of the mind around these powerful strengths that dwell within you. They dwell within you. It's not something far out. No, they're there. They're built into your DNA. They're built into your genome. And you can tap into them, you can bring them forward, and you can start acting and delivering from that mind rather than the mind you brought to trading. And, out of that, the good news, these skills can be trained. We do it here all the time. We have, depending on who you are, where you are, is get some of the stuff where the description takes place, where you get to really have an understanding of what is actually going on inside mind, rather than just being slapped around every time emotional hijacking happens. But it can be trained. First, through emotional regulation, you get to get it so that you don't get hijacked so often. Then through mindfulness, where you're no longer identifying with your thoughts itself. That's a big one, because then who am I? Well, that's the question, friends. Who am I? You are the designer. You are the captain of your destiny. You learn to discern the historical organization of the committee and to reorganize it into higher functioning. Friends, this can be done. I have been doing this with traders for 20 years, and it's powerful. So ultimately, the process is a lot like surfing, is the skills that I've described here are all taught in both my group course and my individual course. And it's really like this. If you take a look, this is the kind of attitude that you really need to develop. You're looking at this surfer. Do you think he controls that wave? No. Do you think his mind is focused on working with that wave to get a great ride? Yes. Is it a sure thing? No. But at the same time, he's having a heck of a time being at one with that wave. His emotional brain, his thinking brain are partnerships. This is the time you can learn the tools of equipping yourself for the journey into self-discovery and mastery, because my promise is that trading is going to require it. And what I'll say is this, is that right now, what we really, really want to invite, if you're just getting started, get my free stuff, go to YouTube, watch a lot of my videos, come back and say, am I really ready to choose what part of myself I'm going to feed and grow? What I want you to consider is our group course coming up July 28th. Oh, I'm sorry, August 28th. Thank God. It teaches everything that I've taught here, have shown you here, and you're learning it in a control system where we meet 5 times over a period of 10 weeks, and you get all this stuff. It's a very powerful thing. And I want to invite you to that, and I would come early because, fundamentally, this is the first thing of learning how to regulate emotion. Really takes between 3 and 4 weeks at least. And people who start early and train themselves do a lot better with this than people who come in late. So I encourage you to take advantage, and we give you a free gift. It's a $200 gift that's what you can pay for it if you basically an emotional regulation workshop I gave. Okay, so I thank you, and we'll take some of your questions. Arlie, how are you doing? Uh, so this is a former client of mine, individual client of mine who well, she's a wonderful human being. It was 1 year ago that I started the individual course, and my trading performance has completely changed. Rande really taught me how to become a better version of myself. Thank you. Thank you, Arlie. And by the way, I did not pay her, okay? But no, Arlie, had all the tools, really bright, very motivated, has all that stuff. She just simply needed to understand the tools of change and growth in respect to trading. She actually is an ideal client. She just has all those things. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate that. Here's Julia. Even if I am able to follow my plans, I oftentimes only act with a clear mind without the caveman taking over for a short period of time each day. It feels like I don't have enough stamina to keep my performance at a level where I can perform well during the day. Can I train that? Yeah. First of all, Julia, a lot of it, you probably are trading too much to begin with. Is my own view is that your brain requires the glucose kind of as the gasoline that fuels it. And when you trade, man, you are just sucking that glucose down. It revs it. Because cognition just requires enormous amounts of energy. And the truth is, between an hour and a half, you're going to burn out. Okay. So what I encourage people to do is every hour to hour and a half, take a 20-minute break, do something completely different, and nothing like thinking. Nothing like thinking. Go for a walk, pet your cat, anything like that. But the thing is that there is also a time where, I want to read this a little bit. I can sometimes only act with a clear mind without the caveman and taking over a short period of time each day. What you're doing, you're saying, okay, I can hold it together right there. I have to train it. Nobody can hold. I had one guy who thought he should be able to hold this together for 10, 12 hours a day. No, what happens is if you can put together 5 minutes, that's a start. And what you're doing is you're gradually building it up, building it up, building it up. Okay? But at the same time, there can also be some stuff in the way that you need to take care of on a psychological level. Okay. Navi, I have been trying for over 2 years. I try to control my risk and arrest greed for 4 or 5 days, but fail one fine day. Again, have tried enough times. Preaching isn't helping. Any practical suggestions? Well, train yourself. The thing is this right here, this is what I'm doing right now is outreach. Okay. And what I'm doing is I'm telling you that there's another way about doing this. I can see what you're doing, and you're 2 years in, you're just getting the moment where you probably know the methodology well, but now you're finding out the psychology is not there. Okay. And you're going to have to work with it. You're going to have to build the mind that engages, and you're going to have to also recognize there's limits to it. In my own work, what I'm doing is I'm telling people that you need to be setting alerts every 10 to 15 minutes so that you just come in to check in to see if your mind's okay. If it's not all right, you take a break, you get it under control, then you go back to trading. But you don't trade with an uncontrollable mind. And the thing is that I would, in terms of like preaching, if that's what you're saying I'm doing right now, I ask you to read Arlie's thing. And I'm going to read it for you. It was 1 year ago that I started the individual course. Remember, she's smart. She knew the whole thing completely backwards. Okay. And completely changed. Rande really taught me how to become a better version of myself. Well, that's what you're looking for. You're looking at it and going, okay, what am I actually doing as skill sets that I'm acquiring? If you're not maintaining breathing as a way to consistently manage the emotional nature, if you're not producing mindfulness to be able to step back out and realize that who in the world is this guy who's sabotaging me? And then that observer starts looking and saying, where is the saboteur living within me? What is the orphan saying? What is the inner critic saying? And where are the heroic nature that I know's in there? Okay? That has to be developed. It's not going to happen because you take so many darn courses and know the stuff inside and out. Ultimately, this is all about your beliefs about your ability to manage the uncertainty of trading. That's what it is. And what it's showing you right now that you may at 2 years, you're a neophyte and you may be able to use your methodology, and then at the same time, you're still stumbling over the psychology. I would encourage you, Nevi, go to my website, go to my YouTube channel, and start watching. And I don't want to talk you into saying you need to take one of my courses. It may end up being that, but I have people all the time that write me and say, Randy, you really changed my life. Through your videos, I am now a profitable trader. I look at that and going, that certainly was not intentional on my part. What I want people to do is understand the problem. And I'm hoping that you're actually beginning to understand the problem in such a way that you can act more intelligently, emotionally intelligently about it. Okay? Okay. I was referring to me preaching my mind, not you. I really appreciate your work. I will focus more and follow suggestions. Thank you. You're welcome. Sue, let's see here. Revenge trading is burning me and my account. I like that. I like the way you said that. Averaging on losing trades is another bad habit. Struggling, I know what not to do, but I can't stop once I'm in a trade. Um, Ultimately, nothing's going to change until you start acting in a completely different way of being in the world. My work, besides the emotional regulation and the mindfulness, I'm actually looking for the deeply held beliefs that produce the revenge trading. And understand, this is a very primitive. This is what I was talking about with Caveman. Understand, Caveman truly, they had to share a cave with a saber-toothed tiger, and the saber-toothed tiger looked to them for food. So it was really a threat all the time, and they had to fight to the death. That's exactly what you're doing. Most likely, what you will find in your development that you had to control, and losing control was just not a good idea at all. And now you're losing trade, and all of a sudden you're triggered back to that as a limbic moment, and it's wiping you out. A lot of people find they really have to go back and find the early development limbic learning that blocks them. Most likely that's you. Okay. This is Susan. Maybe you covered this already, but how does your course itself build an accountability for students to do what is presented in the instruction? Homework, group, oh my God. I am a really, truly big believer in homework. Lots and lots of homework. As a matter of fact, I consider just simply the act of trading to be the homework. But they're all through my work are lots of homework. And I don't do group discussions because we found that to get way out of hand, and you start having power struggles and people with their agendas and stuff like that in a group. And yeah, that what I will say with that though, Susan, is that the individual course has 10 sessions with me over a period of 3 or 4 months. Yeah, on Zoom, and we get into some pretty deep places. Okay, so I was very successful in other fields, so hard to accept loss Thanks so much, Randy. Look, that's actually one of the problems is that in the other worlds, the success formula of hard work and persistence really pays off. You push through that and you get there. Yeah. And so what you're doing though is now you're taking that and you're pulling it into a system trading that simply has different success rules. And losing becomes an art, a skill that you have to really develop. Okay? Losing is landing on the wrong side of probability. That's all. Here's Doug. Okay, you said today I'm going to make money is not the way you should look at trading. What would be one short sentence for a trader to say, my mind is prepared for trading? Is I control the mind I bring to the moment. That's the only thing you control. And you're looking at it and you're going, if my mind is focused on winning, making some money, the key is you do not control whether or not you win or lose. You are basically what you're doing is you're traumatizing yourself. And that's what I see a lot when they do that. However, if you know that the only thing you control is the mind you bring to the game, that's it. That plus an edge is going to extract the capital that you're looking for, okay? But understand, it's not extracting like winning. You're extracting some, you're pushing it back. You're pushing it back and going in. You have an edge, you're exploiting your edge. But what you control, I control the mind I bring to this moment. Yeah. Well, they're good ones and bad ones. But the thing is that all you're doing in the same way that you take a look at a really high-end athlete performing at the top of their game, is what you're looking at is they're not trying to control outcome. They're trying to control the mind because that influences performance greatly and gives them a much better edge and doing incredibly well. I mean, from a football standpoint, you see that all the time. The quarterbacks who really truly are dangerous in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes left and they're down 4 points, that's the guy who is thinking in performance, not winning. You're focused on that and you're letting things just lie wherever they go. And at the bottom of it, you matter simply because you have inherent worth. Okay? I hope that answers your question. Okay, this is Jeff. Having attended the group course, I see. Okay, Jeff. Hi, Randy. I just wanted to take a moment to thank you. Your work has truly changed my life. I've watched over 60 of your YouTube videos and have also read your book. For years, I struggled with self-sabotage and getting emotionally hijacked, but your teaching has made a profound difference. I'm genuinely grateful for your insight and guidance you provided. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. There comes a moment, several years ago, a guy came to me and says, Randy, I really want to thank you. You've made me a lot of money. And I know that he meant it as a compliment. This is all about trading and money, right? And yet there's just something really, truly just, oh man, it didn't fit right with me. And that night I have a dream and I'm looking at my tombstone. And on the tombstone, there is this inscription, Randy made me a lot of money. And I realized that what I really, really want to do is I want to provide a value to people that allows them to change the human being they are. And it just so happens that in trading, you have to. There is no way of BSing yourself around that you're going to have to create a completely different mind as it engages uncertainty. And so what I have come to understand is that, what my job is to help you find the tools, drill you on the tools to produce this mind that frees you from your history. It's powerful. Go. I can do go a lot better than that. Oh, you're in the group course. There you go. Oh, you're go. Having attended the group course, is there some discount for attending individual? Yes, I would love to attend both. Thanks. Yeah, it's a $500 discount if you graduate from the group. Okay, we want you to go through the group. We want you to have at least some level of success that we're going, yeah, this guy needs to be in this next level. Okay, so yeah. Susan, what is a good next step to find out more about the courses? The link on the screen does not have a click through. I know. I'm telling you, we are so far behind. Go to Trader State of Mind and go to group course, then go to individual course. And ultimately, we give pretty detailed information about both those. And what we have always found is it comes down to money. Is that people are in the group course because it's a great value, and people get into the individual course because they look at it and say, "Randy, I can lose this in a day," and they're looking for a mentor relationship, and that's the difference. And it's they're both equipping workshops. They're very skill driven. Okay, they're and whether or not you walk away with a bunch of sayings that I could care less. I am much more driven by that you end up with skill sets that not just change your trading, but also change your life. So I want to thank you, folks. I feel just so complete when I'm talking about this work and the potential for change that people can open for themselves. And I want to thank you for investing the time to check this out. And if I can help you, please do. And I can tell you this, though, is that if you're going to do the group course, do it now rather than right toward the end, because what happens is people get in the last minute and all this. Yeah, sign up now so you can at least get the first class and you can be working the emotional regulation programming. Is that because, man, I'll tell you something. It jumps off from there. Okay, it really jumps off from there, and people kind of get left behind if they weren't there and started working with the emotional regulation work, because it's difficult. I'm asking you after the training and learning how to do it, I'm asking you to be practicing diaphragmatic breathing and make it a habit as you trade. Okay, and I know it takes a while to habituate this stuff. So that's it, folks. I thoroughly enjoyed myself, and be well and have a great July. And if you're an American, I hope you had a great 4th.